and Debbie. So I thank you all for being here tonight. I'm going to start with a little introduction first about Charles Dickens before I actually start my program. This helps, I think, to understand why Dickens wrote what he wrote and did what he did. When Dickens was 12 years old, his father was sent to debtor's prison. He had spent all their money. They were basically a middle-class family. Not well-to-do, but doing well. And when he was sent to debtor's prison, it fell to Charles Dickens to take care of his family because he was the oldest. He had to pawn all of his books, his most treasured items. And then he had to go to work at a shoe blacking factory that was infested with rats. And he had to work there until his father was out of debtor's prison. This would affect Charles Dickens in a way that most of us cannot imagine. He worked in horrific conditions. Nothing like he had ever known personally before in his life. When he was older and successful as a writer, one October, he visited a tin mining company and saw kids working in the tin mine, your age. Their faces black with coal. Their nostrils with soot. Their clothes ragged and filthy. And they did just 12 hours a day. This was not something that he loved at all. He decided to start looking into ways of helping these kids, and he discovered a school called the Raggedy Kids School. They called it the Raggedy School because all the kids that came wore rags. Most of them didn't have families. And those that did didn't have much money. So he wanted to do something to help this school. And he decided in October of 1843, mid-October, that he was going to write a pamphlet to help these schools that were trying to help children. While he was trying to write the pamphlet, the idea for a Christmas Carol grew in his mind. I'm not sure how long it took him to write it, but he had it published less than 2 months later. First printing 6,000 copies on December 19th, 1843. All 6,000 copies were sold by Christmas Day.
Wow.
This is a Christmas. It's an old story. A story about life, about people, about hate, about greed and selfishness. It's a story about love, considerateness, caring. It's a story about people. It's a Christmas song. It's a Christmas carol. Jacob Marley was dead. That's imperative for you to understand. He had died 7 years ago this very night on Christmas Eve. And his only friend Ebenezer Scrooge was there at his side when he died. But Jacob Marley and Ebenezer Scrooge were like two peas in a pod. Both selfish, greedy old men who cared nothing but for themselves, cared not a whit for man or child or anyone else. They were moneylenders, and they made people broke who were desperate to have help. And did they spend it? No, they hoarded their gold like old dragons. They kept it to themselves. They did not share it with anybody. They did not give to charities or to anybody else. They kept that money and hoarded it like old dragons. Jacob Marley was dead, and Ebenezer Scrooge saw to his closing of his estate, even bought his house, and now slept in the very bed that Jacob Marley died in. It was Christmas Eve, 7 years ago this night. And without Jacob Marley's death, this story could not have happened. It was late in the evening. Ebenezer Scrooge was in his building, in his office, bent over, double over his desk with his pen in hand, etching out names, scratching them out, looking for ways of stealing money from others. It was so frigidly cold that he had a fire burning close by, and he couldn't feel the heat because he was so stingy he wouldn't put enough coal in there. It barely warmed the fire. And working just in the other room was Bob Cratchit, his worker. And Bob, well, he was so cold he had a blanket thrown over his shoulder. It was hushed down, breath, cold, freezing breath coming from his mouth as he tried to write with cold ink on that parchment, writing down names and information.